So this Sunday, we are continuing our series looking at the redemption of Scrooge, looking at how the spectral visitors that visit Scrooge slow walk him to this path of redemption. And last week, we looked at how the ghost of Scrooge's former partner, Jacob Marley, tried to show him that the people that Scrooge thought he was better than are not. That everyone in the eyes of God is even. And in fact, some of them, Scrooge might be lower than some of them based on actions and such. But that's where this week comes in. So this week, we are going to look at his interactions with the ghost of Christmas past. And this is a spectral visitor that he gets at midnight. And so let's see how Dickens describes him. So, can I have my first reader? Come on up.
It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung around its neck and down its back, was white as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it. And the tenderest bloom was on the skin. The arms were very long and muscular, the hands the same, as if its holds were of uncommon strength. Its legs and feet were most delicately formed, were like those upper members bare. It wore a tunic of the purest white, and round its waist was a lustrous belt, the sheen of which was beautiful. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and, in singular contradiction of that wintry emblem, had its dress trimmed with summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was that the crown from its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light, by which all this was visible, and which was doubtless the occasion of its using, in its duller moments, a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm. The voice was soft and gentle, singularly low, as if, instead of being so close beside him, it were a distance.
Perfect, thank you. I love this description of the ghost of Christmas past. It is confusing, contradictory. It talks about, it has the frail old hair of an elderly woman, but the youth face of a young man. The voice is like a quiet whisper, but also like it's thundering coming from a great distance. It doesn't make sense. And I think this is a great literary method of showing memory. We often think of memory like a movie. Like we can run it right back and see how it is. And for things like yesterday, yeah, we can do that. My yesterday, I couldn't see myself all day. I ate way too much turkey and watched Stranger Things all day. That's easy. But when you go back even a week, a month, let alone years, that's when it gets a little hazy. How much you see yourself today is often based on your past, based on what you remember of your past. And all too often we underinflate maybe negative elements or overinflate positive elements. Or if you're like me, you do the opposite. You only remember the bad parts and you have a hard time remembering the good parts. But whatever it is, it's not an accurate portrayal. And the same thing is true of Scrooge. Look how he reacts when he is presented. Oh, okay, never mind. I scrolled too far here. We have a little game we're going to do first. Okay. So my first memory, this is highlighting how memory can be hazy, is I was on a swing. I was on my stomach on a swing, listening to what I refer to as God tapes. They were these little tapes that my mom had got me. Reflecting on it now, it's kind of creepy. It's this pastor who was a ventriloquist, who was him and his dummy, would tell Bible stories, and it is, yeah. But I remember listening to them, spinning on the swing, the tape, because I was rocking a Walkman at the time, gets to the end of the tape, so I have to eject it to flip it over, and I remember seeing the number of the tape, and I honestly don't even remember what number it was. I want to say it was 5, but that feels like way too late to have like your first memory, so I don't even know what number it was. But I remember flipping it over, putting it back in, and thinking, hey, I'm that same age. And that's it. That's the memory. I don't remember going out to the swing, coming back in, anything. It's just that quick flash. So our memories can play with us. How many of you have heard the phrase the Mandela effect? Couple people? Yeah. So it's this idea that collectively as a whole, we can misremember things. It gets its name from Nelson Mandela, who died in 2013, right? When he died, there was a whole group of people that were like, didn't he die like 30 years earlier in apartheid? I swear I remember reading that. No, he didn't. So it spawned this whole idea of what, as a collective people, do we misremember? So here's a couple fun examples. Which of these is right? Does the Fruit of the Loom logo have a cornucopia or no? It never did. I remember it with a cornucopia, but apparently it never happened. All right, the Monopoly guy. Does he have a monocle or not? He does not. I think you're right. It's probably conflated with Mr. Peanut, because I always thought he had a monocle. But he doesn't. So much of our past, of how we perceive our past, isn't to be trusted. And so let's look at Scrooge, how it played out for him. The ghost takes him back to his childhood, to the school he grew up in, and suddenly a whole flood of memories come back. So, come up and do our second and last reading, please.
1,000 odors floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes and joys and cares long, long forgotten. Your lip is trembling, said the ghost, and what is that upon your cheek? Scrooge muttered, with an unusual catching in his voice, that it was a pimple, and begged the ghost to lead him where he would. You recollect the way? Inquired the spirit. Remember it, cried Scrooge with fervor. I could walk it blindfold. Strange to have forgotten it for so many years, observed the ghost.
Awesome, thank you so much. So it's only once Scrooge is physically present, or spiritually present, however you want to think about it, whatever the ghost did to him, on these paths, at this location again, does he fully remember it? These pathways, long forgotten, hit him instantly. Now the ghost goes on to show him a lot of really happy memories, a lot of really sad memories, some heart-wrenching memories. But what is the spirit's goal? Is the spirit trying to make him feel bad? Hey, look at all this terrible stuff you've done? Or is the spirit trying to remind him, hey, you've done good in your life? Probably a little bit of both. The spirit is trying to show him that he is not defined by his past. Because it's not entirely good, nor is it entirely bad. And that's like all of us. There's no single determining event in our lives that should point us to how we live today in a negative sense. Obviously, giving your life to Jesus, that is a pinnacle moment that moves you forward. But other than that, there's no event in your life, there's no thing that locks you into where you are today. Now, there is a story that we see in the Gospel of John that highlights this very, very well. So this is John 4. We're going to start at verse 7. It's the woman at the well. Now, I know we touched on this 4 or 5 weeks ago, but I want to hit it again because it highlights something really good here. Now, before we dive in, 30 seconds on the political scale. This takes place in Samaria, which is in the northern part of the kingdom. The Samaritans were the people that were left behind when the children of exile, when the southern kingdom was taken into captivity. They were the people that the empire was like, you're not worth bringing over. You are literally not worth the food it would take to keep you alive as servants. So they got left. During this time, they kind of build their own society because the temple's gone, everything that they had known is gone. So they do the best they can to try to rebuild. When the children of Israel come back, there's some headbutting. Because this group sees the ones that were left as, you've changed everything. You're committing heresy. And this group is like, we were doing the best we could. You abandoned us. It goes a lot from there. But Point is, they don't like each other, and that'll play into this here. So I am going to start reading in verse 7. Now, online people, they updated ProPresenter, and so you're not going to have the verses underneath you. I'm working on it. I'm really working to try to fix it. It was either you get nothing or all the pictures cover the screen entirely and you see nothing anyway. So this was the best option. I will try to have it fixed by next week. So we're going to start in verse 7 here. A Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." His disciples had gone into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria?" The Jews do not share things in common with Samaritans. That head-butting tension coming in. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it was that was saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have no bucket, and the well is deep. Where are you getting this living water?" I do love that response of just, how are you getting water? You don't even have a bucket. Come on, what's happening? "Are you greater than our ancestors Jacob, who gave us this well, and with his sons and his flocks drank from it?" Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. But those who drink of the water that I give them will never be thirsty. The water that I give will become in them a spring of water gushing up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I may never be thirsty or have to keep coming here to draw water." Again, I do like that, still thinking like, this is actual magic water. Come on, I really want this. But Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come back." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, "You're right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you have 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not your husband. What you have said is true." I love we're getting sassy Jesus here. The woman says to him, "Sir, I see you're a prophet." They have a discussion about proper ways to worship that goes forward, but we're going to jump down to verse 25 here where the conversation wraps up. The woman says to him, "I know the Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. And when he comes, he will proclaim all things to us." And Jesus said to her, "I am he, the one who is speaking with you." Now, there's a lot about the story I really like. First off, this lady just straight lies to Jesus' face, and he calls her on it instantly. Again, this is maybe the sassiest, spiciest Jesus we ever see. It's like, yeah, you're right. And then goes on to explain all of everything. But what I love the most is how this conversation wraps up. She talks about that she knows the Messiah is coming. And the Messiah, when they do come, will tell you everything. And in her mind, she says, kind of like you just did. And then Jesus, point blank, no parable, no allegory, no anything, just says, "Yes, I am the Messiah. The one talking to you is the Messiah." This is huge. Minimum, this is the first person, and arguably this is the only person that Jesus point blank says, "I am the Messiah" to. Even talking with the disciples, most of the time it's an allegory, allusion. Even in his trial, when he's asked, "Are you the Messiah?" Jesus' response is, "That's what people say. That's what you just said." But here he is just straight out, "Yes, I am the Messiah." Now, on the surface, this doesn't seem like the person that would get this news first. From a cultural standpoint, as we talked about, they are on opposite sides. Culturally, they each see each other as traitors. And on a personal side, she has just lied to Jesus' face and fully admits to not following the law of Moses. Yet Jesus chooses her to be the first person that he openly proclaims his divinity to. Not only that, she also is the first person to tell anyone about Jesus. After this interaction, she runs into town and tells everyone there, "I kind of think this guy at the well's the Messiah. We should go see him right now." Making her really the first missionary. the first evangelist. And why this is so important is because Jesus did not see her in terms of her past, culturally or personally. He saw her for who she was, who she could be, a child of God, as we touched on last week. And the same thing is true for us. Now, this is not to say our past mean nothing. They do influence who we are today, absolutely. But they are not the single driving force of who we currently are, or the thing propelling us to who we will be. Jesus came, lived, died, was risen again, so that we could not be defined by our brokenness, by our faults, by our mistakes, that we might have redemption. Grieving will not be the end of our story, because Jesus came, died, and rose again. Christ does not call us because we're perfect. If that were the case, none of us would be called. We're called because through Jesus' blood, we can be perfect. Because through the love of Christ, God can see us as perfect. We can be perfect in God's eyes. And so this is the lesson that Scrooge needs to learn. This is his second step on the path toward redemption. He has to learn that his past does not define who he is and cannot define who he is moving forward. He is not locked into one thing or the other based on who he was or what he did. And again, this same thing is true about us. Our past do not have to determine who we are. Jesus has already cleaned our past, forgotten about it. In Hebrews, we read, this is God talking, their sins and iniquities I will remember no more. They're gone. So if God can forgive us, if God can move past our past, why can't we? We are often harsher with ourselves than anyone, seemingly including God. We sit and we dwell on our past, the mistakes we've made, things we wish we could do differently, things we wish we could undo. And often, what we do remember, the things we wish we could undo, the mistakes we think we made, are incomplete. Because as we talked about, our memories, they're foggy. We either over-remember, under-remember, see things through rose-colored glasses, whatever it is. But God is saying that doesn't matter. So that is our challenge this week. Can we be kind to ourselves? Can we love ourselves? Now, let me tell a story about how this is a very difficult thing to do, even for me, for most people. This is probably February, March. I was having a session with my therapist, and she issued me the same challenge. Hey, you have to be better about loving yourself. And me, being a smart aleck, responded with, I don't think I'm my type. This woman, without skipping a beat, looks me dead in the eye and says, what, you're not toxic enough? Okay. 3 things. One, I'm going to give that to you because that was hilarious, and you didn't skip a beat, meaning you had that in the chamber ready to go at some point, so that might be the funniest thing you've ever said, so I'm going to give that to you. 2, ouch, that hurts. And 3, you're not wrong. I need to sit and reflect on that. But that's kind of the point. How hard is it to forgive yourself, to love yourself, to show yourself grace and mercy? So that is our goal, our challenge this week. How can you be a little more like Jesus this week to yourself? We talk all the time about how can we reflect Jesus to the people around us. What about yourself? How can you reflect Jesus' love to yourself this week? Remember Christ's love. Remember Christ's gift of salvation. Jesus loves you. The people in this room love you. Can you love yourself this week? Can you embrace that your past is forgiven, forgotten, redeemed by our God? Can we do that this week? That's our goal. That's our challenge. That's what we're called to do. Go out and believe that the living God has forgiven you, that you are not bogged down by your past self, but free to walk into the glorious awakening of God, of God's love, of God's grace. Go walk in that. Embrace it this week. Join me as we pray.